Hey guys, my name is VaulSC, hope that you're doing well. In this video we're going to be taking a look at a game of Conquest, the Last Argument of Kings. It's going to be between Dweghom and Wadroon. Played a couple of games with Dweghom this week, also one against City States. I'll briefly talk about City States matchup, but this video is mostly going to focus on Dweghom and Wadroon. It was on the scenario Bulwark from the scenario pack. And running the Tempered Sorcerer yet again. I've been playing him a fair bit lately. I do find myself attracted to the attrition style and the healing, and I find that appealing. But after testing him a few times, I'm feeling like we're just going to revert to the boring old Sorcerer, as we always do with Dweghom. Opponent trying out the build with the Chief and going back to the classic Chief matchup, just like Wadroon used to be before they got patched. I find the Matriarch is a little bit better, but we'll talk about the lists in a moment. Perhaps what I'll do is I'll just briefly go through the army lists. Here we are here. So my list just tries to make use of the miniatures that I have, and because of Tempered Creed giving you one elemental marker for every spell that goes off, you sort of maximize the farming of that by taking 4 characters, which is a bit unusual. But because you're double dipping with Ferric Embrace and getting a heal for every elemental potency mark you spend, this is the kind of setup that the Tempered Steelshaper always wants to go with. When you're playing a Sorcerer, you can sometimes go with just like 3 characters. And if you're playing the Ardent Creed, you could just go down to, for example, just the Kerawegh and the Raig. But let's look at it. The Fireforged is just a little element of my collection. I'm not playing them for any other reason than that I have the models, but having said that, they are very, very useful in this context because the Steelshaper himself's got a gun, and he actually does help them a fair bit with his spells. When they do make it in combat, they can try and fight their way out with +1 clash, so they go from 2 up to 3 with Inspired and 4 with Hone Blades. And Unmake Armor or Tempered Plate could help them in a close range situation. Note that Unmake Armor could be cast onto an enemy target that's nearby that's not in combat, then you shoot them with AP2 and the -1 defense, so that's really strong. So he has a little bit of synergy with the Fireforged in general. Steelforged, not the strongest thing in the game anymore now that the Data Defense 4, but I still like them. They're very reliable with their Flux Powered going up to Clash 5. You almost always use the +2 Clash from that. And then with my 2 Sorcerers, sometimes I'd run just the 1 if it's a Sorcerer-only list, but with Tempered Creed, you want to sort of pump out the spells. So I'm trying Earth School again. This is my 3rd game or 4th game with Earth School. I want to like it. It's got so much cool factor. It's defensive, and I love the fact that you can march the Ballistae onto the table carrying the Sorcerer, and they can immediately cast rock shaping to get tenacious, and more importantly just charge up the tokens, whereas with School of Fire you don't actually have any spells that can be cast passively onto your own stuff, so you have to wait till you make it into range of an enemy unit before using it. Having said that, the problem with Earth School is that by the time you get into the mid-game, you get into situations where your opponent gets the jump on you and attacks regiments that you wanted to cast a defensive buff on. They get in there too quickly, and then you're getting no value out of your spells. This is a list with 8 regiments and 4 characters. That's 12 cards. Your opponent's usually going to win the supremacy roll, and that situation's coming up far too many times for my liking. So sadly, I'm going to have to recommend everybody go back to Magma and Fire. I do particularly like Fire just because it's so aggressive. You don't have to set it up with the magmatic seep by placing erupting terrain. But I did play Earth School for these last couple of games this week. I'll be going directly back to Fire after this, of course. 1 Sorcerer on the mount. I like Graft of Fire on him just because it's very unlikely he'll actually take damage directly, and you may as well just get the free spell dice for that. Kerawegh with Flaming Oratory, I think because if he's going the Initiates and because you're healing them with the power of the Ferric Embrace Supremacy ability, they're going to last a long time, and that's going to be even longer if you have a bit of Tenacious in there. I keep forgetting to actually use the ability after I've paid the points for it. I'm going to have to actually write myself a note, but it is very, very good if he joins either the Berserkers or the Initiates, to be honest. Now, my opponent's list, I don't have a copy of what he actually runs. I only have the recollection. What you're seeing here is an exact representation of the miniatures he brought along. It's just the specific upgrades I don't remember. I know that he had a War Chieftain, which was a Warlord with Mantle of the Devoted, Rapid Displacement. I can't remember if he paid for Stoic or not. I do remember the veterans didn't actually have the champion for some reason. If you're taking that many veterans, I'd 100% recommend the champion every time, because that additional attack is going to pay off. The Braves, they actually have a queen with Death's Gaze. This is something which allows you to get a lot of impact hits, but realistically, you'd normally be wanting to go with Famine. That's a much better upgrade for Death's Gaze because you get a larger charge range and more impact hits, so it really is the obvious choice. My opponent wanting to be different, though, just try out Death, and again, I'm not too sure if he had Stoic in that particular lineup, or if he had a Huntress upgrade, or if he had any items of the Scion or the Chosen. So, yeah, just going to basically dive into the bat rep. I will just briefly run through some of the city-states stuff. So, just talking about what happened in this particular game. It was really just a matter of my opponent playing with a few of the miniatures he'd assembled so far, because he is quite new to Conquest. This is my opponent who I've played Infinity against many times over the last 8 years. He's appeared more on my channel than anybody else that plays me, but he's just starting Conquest, and a lot of his stuff hasn't really been painted yet, and we're borrowing Darren's army, which I've recently scanned for Tabletop Simulator. So what essentially happened here is that because he doesn't have access to any of the newer stuff like chariots or anything like that, it's a matter of infantry blocks just sort of moving slowly into Dweghom, doing some fighting up front, the Dweghom getting, of course, the spells and the shooting, which really sort of manages to cut everything down, and the Dweghom units with the elemental potency tokens and the Ferric Embrace surviving just a little bit too long for the city-states to break through, and it became a fairly decisive victory for me in the end. So I won't really do a bat rep on this, just because it was a sort of a bit of a limited game in the sense of what could happen with the models available, and just the way it played out, really. So I want to talk more about the other game that I played against Wadroon, of course. So let's just come to that photo now. So this is the table setup. We've got a couple of hills, and a couple of the hills in the middle are forested, and then of course Bulwark has the two areas along the side here, but they are controlled by an objective. So I'm going to be deploying on this side of the table, and this objective here is going to be friendly to me, so I can start scoring the zones straight away. My opponent has to kill that objective before he can actually get points off that area, and it's the opposite for me. I've got to destroy this objective before I can take this zone, and there's one objective marker in the middle for either of us to kill, which is neutral. A couple of impassable buildings, and otherwise that's about it. So my lineup to begin with is these cards here, just explaining my list and my spells and stuff to my opponent. You can see a few AI created artworks there, just because I don't have cards which are there for the Sorcerer or Steelshaper models at this point in time. I do actually have a limited edition Hellbringer Drake card, though, which is kind of nice, and also a raid card, which I'm not using for this game. But you can also see I've created artwork for some of these spells you can cast, just since I've got so many of them to track. So I picked the Hold Ballistae to come on automatically with the Sorcerer, because I want to get as many tokens happening as I possibly can. And then I rolled for the other two light units, and they did show up. So I've got all these cards here, and that is the first turn with all of my stuff showing up. My opponent elected to hold the Raptor Riders off the table to bring them on later, which is smart. There's nothing good that the Raptor Riders can do. They'll just get hit by spells and by shooting. It's a great idea to hold them off until they can attack at the same time that enemy units, that your friendlies will engage the enemy. Going into turn 2, I bring in the Kerawegh automatically and roll for the other mediums you can see up the top there. And I think that I only ended up picking up the Fireforged, and I failed the rolls for the other 3. So what we have here is the Sorcerer going first, just to generate a Tenacious spell for a free token. Onto the Initiates, Kerawegh casts a spell, Fireforged, then Steelshaper casts a spell, just trying to farm those tokens. And then we'll go last with the light units so that they can attack anything that moves into range. So we're going into the left flank here with the Kerawegh's unit with the Initiates. You can see that Ace of Hearts in the bottom right. I just use a bunch of cards to represent how many tokens I have. So like a 3 of Hearts will be 3 tokens, etc. Opponent opposing the Initiates with his block of Veterans, the War-faring Veterans, War being the best chant they can possibly have. Nice close-up, very gloomy, but cool little bit of photography here on the Kerawegh's unit. He's got this Nemancer model in his base, which I'm quite attracted to. And a close-up on the Chief, just chanting for war, getting some tokens up his sleeve. The Fireforged appearing right next to the Initiates, it's a great place for them to be. They should really be trying to get into a position where they can shoot at something that's engaged so that they're not threatened. And then the Hellbringer Drake comes up behind them. I am yet to have a game where they evade combat entirely, but the thing is, if you can get one volley before you get charged and then get Hone Blades from your Steelshaper, you might be able to fight your way out of it, and they do have the tokens to spend on themselves. So opponent going for the Chosen and Conquest through the middle of the table with the Scion, and then the Blooded just on the opposite side there, past the house onto his other flank. My Inferno Automata just going into the forest here. I know that as Chosen, if I recall correctly, I think that they have some impact hits. They do indeed. So this forest will help me block that, and will help me block Inspired. So there may be a small possibility that I can actually survive against a charge from them, and maybe even use the tokens to heal my Inferno Automata back, cause some impacts or some Aura of Death hits, and then charge them in the flank with my my Flame Berserkers. Now the Queen is coming in opposite the Fireforged, so it's going to be the Initiates and the Fireforged versus the Queen and the Veterans. I'm going to need the Hellbringer Drake on this flank to cut through all of that armor, because they have a lot of shields and things. Bringing in the Flame Berserkers just next to the forest here. This means that if he charges the Conquest Chosen into the Flame Berserkers, I can attack in the flank with the Automata, and vice versa, just setting up the trap. And I explained this to him, like he knows there's a trap. So if he goes in there, his unit's going to be placed that way, and I hit him in the flank. But if he goes against the Berserkers, that's where the Chosen are going to be, and the Automata flank him. I think that it's probably better for him to attack these guys, since they're slightly more dangerous, and these guys are going to have to go through the forest and won't get impact hits. But the thing is, this unit is in range of my Sorcerer, who can actually use the Elemental Potency tokens, whereas these guys aren't. So that is actually a pretty big difference. So that's the zoom out end of turn 2. You can sort of see the trap that I've laid for the Chosen in the middle of the table, and the Ballistae on the right-hand side there, ready to deal with the Blooded. And, you know, if I can get the jump on them in terms of the Supremacy roll, I could probably even beat him in combat, because I could put Roots of Stone and go to Defense 5, or if he comes really close to me, I could even put Roots of Stone on him to give him a massive bonus to defense, but he can't charge me. Note that, of course, this objective will have to be destroyed by my opponent before he can score there, but I've got no mediums. These are all light units here, so I can't score, which is kind of dumb, so I'm going to be having to bring in a medium unit through there. On this side, that's blocking him from scoring, so all I've got to do is just come in here and hold the line. This house is going to be quite useful to stop this unit from being flanked, and I can bring in the Hellbringer Drake back through there, and you can see I've got 3 tokens charged up at this point. But that's going to increase very quickly, very soon. So turn 3, I am going to be bringing on the Hellbringer Drake right at the end with the Sorcerer, and the only unit that I'm not got on the field for the cards yet is the Steelforged. So up here, my opponent charges the objective with his Veterans, causes some damage to it. The Raptors come on the left-hand flanked here, or his left, going to be hoping to get into battle with the Ballistae eventually, but if I can get the jump with these spells, that's going to help me out a fair bit. But you can sort of see, can't you, that the School of Fire would be much better here, because as they come closer, I can hit them with a fireball, make them run away. It's just very much more effective than the Earth School. So we have the Ballistae activating and shooting at, I think, the objective at this point, and then, or might have been one of his units. I've got the Hold Warriors just coming in behind. I'm hoping that if he doesn't commit too much to this flank, my light units will beat up on his ones, and then the Hold Warriors can move past them onto that objective later. So he does decide to attack the Inferno Automata with the Chosen. These guys will have to, and just for those of you guys who are a bit new to Wadroon, these guys have Fanatic, which allows them to get to tier 3 of the Conquest benefits table by only having a couple of tokens. And of course, the Scion can activate first, create the token, then he can chain into the Conquest Chosen, which can activate straight away. They can move with +3, so 8 inches, plus a 5 plus d6 charge, and then they can clash with the third action. So that happens, but without Inspire and without impact hits, and it's mainly because of the Scion having Cleave 2 that they do any damage at all here. But it is a fair bit, and after resolve checks, I'm reduced to just 1 stand of Automata. So there you have it, but you can see I'm about to hit him in the flank with my my Berserkers. So over here, the Steelshaper, this is a double march, just getting me barely onto the hill there. I don't want to come any further forward, but I just want to have that hill so I can shoot over across the battlefield onto anything that comes into the kill zone, as it were, and we're just going to wait for him to arrive. Over this side, the Blooded march up, but they're going to be in range of the Ballista very shortly. Ballistae have activated this turn, so we're going to have to wait till next turn. The Initiates moving up. I'm in a position here where I could move a little bit further forward, and that would allow the Veterans to keep welling on the objective, but wouldn't be able to fit past it. You guys have seen me employ that tactic in other videos, but I want him to charge me. I want him to sort of cross the field and not, kill that objective. And I want him to just be bogged down, and he'll get into close range of the Fireforged that way. So I'm just sort of egging him on here and just hoping that he does charge me, because I think I'm tough enough, especially with my Elemental Potency tokens, to crack the Veterans early. Over this side, the Braves rush up. They are going to be taking some hits from the Fireforged soon, but with their long charge range, they should be able to get in and do some impact hits. Over here, the Flame Berserkers charge into the Chosen and really rip them up, doing tons of damage. Chosen have 7 wounds each, but after the resolve checks clear, and of course he's having to reroll resolves from the flank attack, reduced him down to just like half a stand and the character. There's the glorious charge there, their hair on fire and everything. Great photo. So over here we also have the Inferno Automata, who can activate and rally and chip off a few more bits of damage, and I think that ends up killing the squad. So next up, the Hellbringer Drake comes in behind the Initiates. This is a great position for him to be in. You always want to protect your Hellbringer Drake. And the game plan here is just really to wait for the Veterans to charge in and just hit them with the spell from the Fire Sork, the Hellbringer Drake close range, and the Fireforged, and just hold the line really with the Initiates, and that should wipe them out, and I can then take the zone. It really depends on where he sends his Tauntaur and his Apex Predator, though. But the thing is, this is mostly into my third of my half of the table. So I've got a bit more time before they make it, and that's quite a good tactic in Conquest, is just to think about how much time your opponent has spent coming to you and delaying their reinforcements from catching up. That does make a bit of difference. So Fireball goes into the Veterans. They are getting +1 defense from, of course, their chant, but I do have -2 on the damage. The Initiates for this game have Tenacious, and the Veterans probably do as well, but we both forgot about that sort of stuff. Alright, so this next turn, the Flame Berserkers go first, and I think the reason for that was because there's still the Chosen alive. I don't think that the Automata managed to take them out, and then it's just charging up tokens for the rest and bringing on the Steelforged at the end, this being turn 4. So starting turn 4, yeah, you can see in the center there that he's still got that little group of Chosen, so we'll be destroying them first and then wheeling around with the Flame Berserkers later. Now, my opponent gets the jump on me here and managed to go for the long bomb charge with the Braves, making into contact with the Fireforged. So this is a problem because it sort of means that I can't really do my shooting, and I've got to deal with his big block of Braves. On the bright side, this is just a charge. It doesn't have a clash attached to it. He does have Death's Gaze, but he doesn't use Famine here. So with the +1 clash from Shock from the Chief Warlord and from Death, the War Chant, he's going up to clash 4, but the impacts is only about 10 to 12, and I'm blocking like 2/3 of them, and I have the tokens to heal with as well. The problem, I think, for his setup, though, is that once I start attacking him, he doesn't have any cleave. I've got defense 4. I can use -1 defense for my spell or Hone Blades for +1 clash. And I've got the Hellbringer Drake right there to shoot them in the flank with -2 armor. That will cut completely through their armor. And the fireball spells will as well. So I should be able to hold the line here. Brilliant photo, though. I just love this photography. I managed to somehow get the Braves like balanced on a hill, so they're sort of leaning over, and it looks like they're rushing over the hill and coming down the other side onto the massed guns of the dwarves. It's just a really great piece. I was happy about how this turned out. So, yeah, Flame Berserkers go next and they wipe out the remaining Chosen. Then we have the Chief, who's deciding to decline the battle against the Initiates, which is smart. He is battering down the objective, and once that's destroyed, I'll have to come to him to contest this zone, and then if he can get the Tauntaur or the Apex in through to fight the Initiates later, that might allow him to start scoring quite a bit. This side, I'm putting Roots of Stone on my own unit in case they get charged or attacked or shot, and just casting a spell and blasting the Blooded with my shots. The Blooded have been damaged, but they do manage to get a March charge off onto the Flame Berserkers, or maybe even just a charge, can't remember, but it didn't do a hell of a lot. Then, this is a fun one. The Inferno Automata is able to double march past the Blooded and just come out into the open field here. And the reason I'm doing this is because he's got Fluid Formation. He can't really get much damage done from here. If my opponent brings on a Tauntaur or an Apex Predator, I can use this guy to just go right in front of them like an inch away and just slow them down. So if I can delay the Tauntaur or the Apex Predator for like joining the battle for another 2 turns, that'll give the rest of my army so much time to overcome the problems they're currently facing and then swamp the monsters later. If he completely ignores this unit and just deploys the monsters on a completely different part of the battlefield, then I can turn around and attack the Blooded from behind, or I can just go after that objective to the left there and chip that down so I can score it later. So this guy is actually quite a valuable piece, even though he's left with like 1 wound, because these are 4 wounds inflicted, as you can see. So we have the Raptor Riders moving a bit closer, not managing to get a charge off on the Ballistae at this point. The Steelshaper activates next, puts +1 clash onto the Fireforged. They only have 3 attacks, but if you take 2 stands with 3 attacks, plus the command stand, plus the 4 attacks in the Steelshaper, that is going to be 8 plus 6, 14 attacks on 4s. And the Braves are a defense 3, the Fireforged are defense 4. So this actually does more damage to the Braves than the Braves did to the Fireforged with their impacts. The Apex arrives. It's going to be going for the central objective just to get a lead on scoring. It's worth 3 points there, and as a heavy, it's going to be able to munch it quite quickly, and then it's got a bit of a gap there. It can either go after the Flame Berserkers or more likely to be the Initiates in the middle right there. So over here, I think we had the Queen activating and healing some of the Braves, or some sort of interaction there. The Tauntaur arrives, goes directly in front of the Inferno Automata, so this is an interesting spot for them. I think that he probably should have heavily committed to either one of the 2 flanks and just started scoring earlier. But he's going through the middle just to give him either option, and this does give me a possibility of actually blocking the Tauntaur for a little bit with that little lone Inferno Automata. Over here we have the Hellbringer activating, and as you can see from the positioning there, he's in the flank of the Braves. They are defense 2 with the shield, so we ignore the shield, and the AP2 of the cannons cuts through that. Note you get an overcharge token as a draw event now, so that just blasts through. You can use it every time you shoot. And then, of course, the fireball from the Sorcerer does that as well. So the Brave's taking a bunch of damage there. The Initiate's moving up. I'm just being careful just to position a little bit so that it's going to take a while for the Tauntaur or the Apex to flank me, and I just want the veterans to ignore that objective and charge me, just so I can start distracting them from the actual objective on the zonal area there. Over here we have the Steelforged moving through. They are positioned in such a way that if he goes after my Ballistae, I should be able to use some of my elemental potency tokens to block some of the Raptor's damage, heal back some points, survive long enough to then charge in the flank with the Steelforged. But of course, if he charges the Steelforged with the Raptors, they'll do almost no damage. I'll shoot him in the flank, and then I can just rush past them and go for that objective. If he brings the Tauntaur over, I should have about 4 regiments to deal with it. You kind of need that against a Tauntaur because it's just so extremely strong. But 4 should be enough, especially with the Earth Magic for the defense. I could even lock the Tauntaur down onto the objective if I really wanted to. So we come now to turn 5. This is the zoom out here where you can see the action. 2 monsters for Wadroon in the center. I've got all my infantry just stretched across this thin line and mostly ignoring the center there. I'm looking very strong on the right-hand flank, but the left-hand flank could be an issue if he gets in there with the Apex and the Veterans onto the Initiates and breaks through onto that zone, and it's just remains to be seen what the Tauntaur does. So this turn, Steelforged go first, just because they want to nice and easily wipe out the Raptors and just conserve them for later, and they could be the winning blow, the right hook from the side there. I'm going with the Steelshaper next. Maybe that should be first, but I feel like just with the tokens I've built up, the Fireforged should be okay. But just in case he doesn't go first with his queen, the Steelshaper is going to be quite useful there to get Hone Blades or something like that up, or -1 defense onto the Braves, and just prepare to win that fight through attrition. Okay, so it is the Queen first. She attempts to duel. I decline with the Steelshaper, and then she chains into the Braves for a bit of an attack. But we just have so much defense riding on this that the Braves don't really manage to achieve very much. And she doesn't manage to, I think, get a decent death chant onto them at this point. Over here, the Steelforged can march, charge, or even just charge clash into these guys. And at clash 5, with all those impact hits, we are able to do a fair bit of damage. Over here, the Veterans do charge the Initiates, and this is Tier 3 war, because they have the Mantle. So that's dangerous. I'm forgetting about Tenacious every time, but I've got a bunch of those tokens I can use to automatically block some of the hits. That's specifically going onto the Chief's attacks, because you can see all of the hits first, work out which ones have Cleave 2, use the tokens against those ones, and then you're taking Defense 4 down to the 3s against the Veterans, and blocking some of the damage, healing back at the end, so I'm not losing too many of them. Over here we also have the Blooded trying to go after the Fireforged, and they do some damage, but the thing is for them that he's up against Resolve 5, and he doesn't have any Cleave, so I'm Defense 3, and I have I also have the Sorcerer nearby, so not a lot getting done here, and they don't have an Aberration either. Over the side, we put Hone Blades back on there, and at this point I've actually lost one stand of Fireforged, but I can actually bring them back by using the Elemental Potency tokens to heal 3, and that will get most of a stand, and I can put a stand back on there. Apex now charges into the central objective, impact hits do 1 damage, and the actual chomp from the jaws does the other 2, so he picks up 3 points. Very nice. The Tauntaur charges into the Inferno Automata and easily wipes it out, as you can imagine it would. Over here, the Kerawegh is able to inspire clash onto the Veterans, not getting a lot done though, because they have no Cleave, but they are trying. And then the Berserkers, who are in a great position, they do a combat reform, and then they start crushing the Blooded, just whacking into them. Now, the Blooded have been reduced to, the Braves have been reduced to just 2 wounds left after the Inferno, so the Hellbringer Drake absolutely pummels them with the guns. So the great news here is we're going to be able to break through and heal up some of the Fireforged and start shooting at the Veterans. And when you've got the Veterans at AP2, the Hellbringer AP2, the Fireforged, the Firesorks Fireball at AP2, the Veterans should be defeated after all of that. We'd also have some shots in the Ballistae onto the Tauntaur. You've got to start whittling them down, because the Tauntaur will literally kill 2 units a turn if you let it. So that's the start. Over here, we're also marching the Hold Warriors in front of the Ballistae. A, because they're a scoring unit, but B, I want to sort of screen my own Ballistae against the Tauntaur, and I might also be able to get a spell like Rock Roots of Stone onto the Warriors when the Tauntaur charges them. Maybe they'll survive, but still, the Tauntaur's got Line Breaker and Cleave 1, and he does impact hits and trample, so even with +2 armor, you might not still survive that. So that's the end of, I think, turn 4 or 5, probably 5, no, turn 4. He is ready to sort of split the monsters up, with Apex are going into the Initiates shortly, and the Tauntaur is going to contend with the 4 regiments I have on the side of the table. The Steelforged are about to pick off the last Raptor Rider and then turn around. And so long as the combined shooting and attacking and everything can take the Tontor down, I should have that flank done. But my opponent has actually recently gone up to around about 10 victory points because he's got 3 from killing the central objective with the Apex. He's got 3 from killing the one on that side with the veterans. And the veterans did score a few points at one point, like I think 4 total from Bulwark, because one of the sides gives you a bonus 2, and he happened to be on that particular turn. So it's 10 points to 0 at this stage. I'm winning on material, but Wadroon coming to this halfway point are far ahead on points. So first thing I'll activate this turn is going to be the Steelshaper. I really want to get some tokens on there to revive the Fireforged. Then I can kill the Braves and start shooting the veterans. That's the priority. And the Steelforged are going to be last. They want to pick off that Raptor and then turn around. But everything else in the middle just going as normal as you'd expect it. So that's the overview. On to the first activation, which is the Tontor charging past here, wiping out the Flame Berserkers, basically, doing a bundle of damage to them. The Queen being assaulted here by the Steelshaper. Steelshaper is able to get Hone Blades on them to finish these guys off. I think I might have even left them on 1 wound for the Hellbringer to try and pick off. Over here we have the Initiates taking some more damage. I'm starting to heal a few of them back, and but at this point we've also cut the Veterans down to like three stands left plus the character, thanks to a few different things going off. Over here, the Berserkers doing some damage to the Tontor. They're just chopping him on the foot, inflicting a handful of wounds. You've got to keep picking away at him at every turn, because he's got like 26 wounds, but every turn counts, so eventually you will get there. Over here, the Kerawegh casting -1 Resolve on the Veterans, which cancels out the +1 Resolve they're getting from the War Chant, and then attacking with the Initiates. Not getting a lot done. The Veterans have got like 6 wounds each. They're defense 4 with Blessed, so it's kind of hard to cut through them, but, you know, you got to try. You got to just chip them down. So there he is, just using the long pole arms, known for. Now, unfortunately, the Apex arrives. He's going to march charge. Can't immediately get the charge off, but this is really trouble because from the flank, the Armor Piercing 2 is going to cut me down to saving all 1s, and he's got Terrifying 2, and I've got to reroll any successful resolve checks. So this is going to mean that I lose the Initiates next turn unless I save up a ton of tokens to deal with this guy. Over here, we have some more shooting into the Tontor. This is ripping up a fair bit. I think he's taken approximately half wounds now, which is great news. Means we're going to be able to topple him eventually. And rather than going for the Tontor, the warriors are charging the objective, because the sooner I can cut it down, the sooner I can catch up on scoring, and that's going to be important for later on in the game. Over here, because we didn't actually finish off the Braves, annoyingly, the Queen can actually bring some of their wounds back and attack. So what I had to do following this is just to put all of the Hellbringer shots into them and the Fireball from the Sorcerer. I really wanted to use those on the Veterans, but because the Braves were fighting to the last breath, they're sticking around, and I had to wait until this moment to finish them off. Over here, the Raptor trying to get a few hits onto the Steelforged, but she can't really achieve that. They are too tough, and as you can see from the background of the photo, we're going to be just pummeling her and then spinning around to go after that objective. So, getting closer to turn 6 or 7, the Steelshaper wants to go first here because it's crucial that they generate a token that can be used by the Initiates, and then the Fireforged get to move up and shoot at the Veterans before they attack the Initiates. That's really important. As you can see from the zoom out photo, I'm about to lose the Initiates, but although the Tontor is going to cut through the last of Fame Berserkers and maybe charge something else like the Ballistae, I should be able to finish him off, or if he leaves the range of the objective, I should just be able to collect some points regardless. Okay, so we are casting Harden +1 onto the Initiates from the Steelshaper, which is clutch. It's so important because it means that the Apex Predator goes from Cleave 2 down to Cleave 1, and the Veterans lose their Cleave 1, and I can still chain this into the Berserkers to come up and shoot the Veterans. So just amazing to win the Supremacy roll here. So they move up, they do a whole bunch of blapping damage into the Veterans, cutting them down. And then, of course, we have the veterans attacking, and of course, like an idiot, I'm forgetting that I have Hardened all of a sudden, just because we're kind of playing for time here. My opponent kind of had to go home soon. We were sort of rushing it a bit, both going very quickly. I forgot that I have Tenacious as well. My Initiates probably would have been fine, but nope, they took a bunch of damage here. And then, of course, the Apex Predator absolutely munching on them. I have been managing to consistently cast Fear onto the veterans to stop them from scoring, just in case they manage to kill enough of my contesting guys, so that has been a plus. But then the Apex looms over and starts eating them. I can't remember if he fully wiped them out this turn or whether it was the next turn, but I know that he did a ton of damage to them that I really should have blocked a little bit better with my, my Tenacious. All right, over here, we're reforming with the Hold Warriors after destroying the objective, but not coming into contact with the Tontor. If you look really closely, you may see that there's a little gap of daylight there where I don't want to be in contact because it makes it too easy for the Tontor to just clash with his first action. He's inspired always. If he then wipes them out, he could just charge over here and do impact hits on me and tramples, and then swing around to beat the Steelforged and come back to the objective. We don't want that. So I'm just setting up a position here. What's ultimately going to happen, though, is he's going to kill these guys and then charge right past. I'm not really sure if that's legal, but that's how we played it. So the Tontor, with his nice smiling grin there, he just destroys the Berserkers with a clash, and then he charges past into the corner here of the Ballistae. We decided to rule that would be legal, so he does impact hits to them and trample hits and absolutely ruins them, even though I think I had some defensive spell like +2 armor at this point. He's got Line Breaker, he's got Cleave, he's got all sorts, he's got Brutal Impact. It's just crazy. Over here, we're finally freed up with the Sorcerer to put some spells into the Veterans and the Apex, so that's what's happening there. And a few attacks back with the Ballistae onto the Tontor. We've got to take every little hit we possibly can generate. He is well over half wounds inflicted at this moment, so we'll eventually get him. And then we have the Steelforged coming in behind the Hold Warriors, just to make sure that the Tontor's 3 stands that he counts for with scoring doesn't overpower my 3 Hold Warriors. So with a couple of stands of Steelforged come in range, that allows me to pick up the objective here, which I badly need for catching up on points. So coming into around about turn 7 or 8, again, I do want to go with the Steelshaper first to potentially put Hardened down on something and to blow away the Veterans with the guns. That's the main priority. And Steelforged last, just because the Tontor can't attack the Steelforged, and I want an opportunity to clear things out of the way and charge him and finish him off. So that's the overview for this turn. You can see I actually do have 1 stand of Initiates left. I barely survived there, so they're about to die to the Apex, but with the Fireforged, Steelshaper, Sorcerer, and Hellbringer all collectively having at least 1 turn of shooting onto the Apex, if not a second one, I should be able to clear that flank. On the right, you can see the Tontor is nearly dead. He's taken 18 wounds, but I've still got 3 units to deal with him. So we have the Apex going first, munching on the last of the Initiates, and then he declares a charge into the Fireforged, doing some impact hits on them, but no clash onto the Fireforged just yet. Over here we have Hone Blades and Inspire onto the Apex Predator, doing a bunch of damage to him just from, the knives. The Veterans decide not to get involved. They are triple marching, thanks to rapid displacement, over onto the objective, but sadly they are in range of my Hellbringer. So on the other side, the Sorcerer puts Roots of Stone against the Tontor. Not that's going to help very much, and they attempt to attack the Tontor. Over here, the Fireball from the Sorcerer shooting into the Veterans. They've only got a couple of wounds left, so with the shooting from the magic spell, that is able to pick up the Veterans there and then. And it clears me to actually do a double march with the Drake because it's very, very fast, coming over to score on the objective because there's nothing nearby and the Apex is too far away. Over here, the Hold Warriors are charging the Tontor now that it's cleared out my Ballistae and doing a further few additional points of damage onto him. And the Steelforged just moving around to grab the objective and set up that bottom charge there, the rear charge for the Tontor. So pretty much turn 9 or 10, Steelshaper going first to just defend against the Apex, Steelforged last. He's literally only got the 2 monsters left, and that's all he really has. I actually decided to redo the deck here just to go with the Hold Warriors because they want to sort of finish off the Tauntaur if possible. So Apex attacks reduces the Fireforged to just like maybe 1 wound left. But of course he's so badly damaged that he can just be shot now. Over here the Hold Warriors charging the Tauntaur to take him down. Apex at this point is... can't quite remember what happened to him, but I do remember that this is the bottom shot. We're just firing the cannons up his bum, and that is easily able to kill him once you factor in the Sorcerer's shots and spell as well, and he can of course score. And then we have the Steelforged charging the Tauntaur and ripping up the last couple of wounds that it had. What I think happened back here is that the Hold Warriors did, a handful of wounds to the Tauntaur, and then the Tauntaur attacked them back and completely wiped them. So then you have, and of course they did the trample, so he couldn't move. So these guys sacrificed themselves, and of course the Steelforged move in to finish off the Tauntaur. All right, so what do we learn from that game? Well, from the Wardroom perspective, it's really fun and interesting to use the Death Chant, but War is definitely better, and Famine is probably better than Death for Death's Gaze, for impact hits. I think it's really important to use the upgrades like the Champion for the +1 attack for the Braves and the Veterans. And if you have Stoic, which you should always take if you can on big blocks like Braves and Veterans, leave yourself a note to use it. And that also applies to me using, my Initiates, which are there for attrition. They're being healed by those Elemental Potency tokens. Having 1 wound blocked every turn is so important on that unit. Other thing I think that's important is that, as you can see from this, the Fire School is just much better than Earth. I wanted to like Earth. I feel like what they should do is they should reduce the cost of the Sorcerer by 20 points and then add a cost to add the school. So you add the 20 points back for Fire and Magma, but only like 10 points for Earth. So it's actually cheaper in terms of points than Fire. So that would be a good start. They should make it like that, unless they're going to just make the Earth School that much more powerful or useful or give it some sort of offensive spell. Anyway, for now, I hope you guys enjoyed that little bat rep. I'll be back with some more stuff after this weekend, and yeah, enjoy.